Sammy Davis Jr. was walking through a military base in Vietnam in 1968 when he found a piece of paper on the ground. It was a suicide note. The last line read, "I wish I could hear Mr. Bojangles one more time before I go." Sammy had 15 minutes to find the soldier who wrote it. What happened next remained classified for 40 years, until a retired four-star general finally told the truth. It was December 1968, and Sammy was in Vietnam as part of a USO tour. For those who don't know, the USO sent entertainers to perform for American troops serving overseas, giving them a brief escape from the horrors of war. Bob Hope did these tours, so did Anne Margaret, Raquel Welch and countless others. But Sammy's 1968 tour would be different from all the others. The war was at its worst. The Tet Offensive earlier that year had shattered American confidence that victory was near. Soldiers were dying by the hundreds every week. Morale was at an all-time low. Many troops felt abandoned by their country, fighting a war that nobody back home seemed to support anymore. Sammy arrived at Firebase Delta, a remote outpost near the Cambodian border, on December 18th. The base was home to about 800 soldiers, most of them barely 20 years old. They'd been in combat for months, watching friends die, living in constant fear of the next mortar attack. The performance was scheduled for 7 p.m. Sammy would do his usual show, sing, dance, tell jokes, do impressions. Give these kids 2 hours where they could forget where they were and what they were facing. But at 6:15 p.m., 45 minutes before showtime, Sammy decided to take a walk around the base. He wanted to see where these soldiers lived, how they spend their days. His handlers told him it wasn't necessary, that he should rest before the show. But Sammy insisted. He walked past rows of tents, past sandbag bunkers, past exhausted young men who looked like they'd aged 20 years in 20 months. Some recognized him and waved. Others were too tired or too traumatized to care that a celebrity was walking through their camp. That's when he saw it. A piece of paper on the ground, mud-stained and crumpled. Sammy almost walked past it, but something made him pick it up. It was a letter, written in shaky handwriting on standard military-issue paper. The ink was smeared in places as if tears had fallen on it while it was being written. Sammy read the first line, "To whoever finds this, please send it to my mother in San Francisco." His heart started racing as he read further. It was a suicide note. A soldier was planning to end his life, and he'd written goodbye letters to his family. But it was the last line that hit Sammy like a physical blow. "I wish I could hear Mr. Bojangles one more time before I go. That song always made me feel less alone." Sammy looked at his watch. 6:20 p.m. The letter was still dry, except for the tear stains, which meant it had been written recently, probably within the last hour. The soldier who wrote it was somewhere on this base, and if the letter was lying on the ground, it meant he'd either dropped it by accident or left it to be found after he was gone. Sammy ran back to where his handlers were waiting. "I need to find someone," he said urgently. "Right now. I need every soldier on this base assembled immediately." His manager, a man named David, looked confused. "Sammy, the show starts in 40 minutes. We can't—" "I don't care about the show," Sammy interrupted. "There's a soldier on this base who's about to kill himself. We need to find him now." David's face went pale. He immediately called for the base commander, Colonel William Harris. Within minutes, Harris was reading the suicide note. His jaw clenched. "We need to search every tent," Harris said. "Every bunker, every latrine. But with 800 men on this base, it could take hours." "We don't have hours," Sammy said. "This letter is recent. He could be doing it right now." Harris made a decision. He ordered an immediate base-wide assembly. Every soldier not on active patrol duty was to report to the main courtyard within 5 minutes. It was an unusual order, but nobody questioned it. 736 soldiers assembled. Harris did a quick head count against his roster. 64 men were unaccounted for, most on patrol, but some whose location was unknown. Sammy stood on a makeshift platform and held up the letter. "I found this note," he said, his voice carrying across the assembled troops. I'm not going to read it out loud because it's personal, but I need to find the man who wrote it. If that's you, or if you know who it is, please come forward. Nobody's in trouble. I just need to talk to you." Silence. 700 soldiers stared back at him. Nobody moved. Sammy tried again. "Look, I know things are hard out here. I know you're going through hell. But whoever wrote this letter mentioned my song, Mr. Bojangles. That means something to me. That means this person and I are connected somehow. Please, let me help." Still nothing. Colonel Harris stepped forward. "We're going to find you anyway," he said firmly. "We'll search every inch of this base, but it'll be faster if you just come forward." More silence. Then from the back of the assembly, a young lieutenant raised his hand. "Sir," he said to Harris, "Private Chen didn't show up for assembly. He was in his tent 30 minutes ago, but he's not here now." Harris's face went grim. "Where's his tent?" "Section C, Tent 14. Without another word, Sammy jumped off the platform and started running. Harris and several soldiers followed. Section C was on the far side of the base, nearly a quarter-mile away. Sammy ran faster than he'd run in years, his heart pounding. They reached Tent 14. It was dark inside. The flap closed. Harris called out, "Private Chen, this is Colonel Harris. I'm coming in." No response. Harris pulled back the tent flap. In the dim light from outside, they could see a figure sitting on a cot, hunched over. Even in the shadows, they could see what he was holding. An M16 rifle, the barrel pointed upward under his chin. "Nobody come in," the soldier said quietly. His voice was shaking. "I mean it. Stay back." Harris froze. This was exactly the situation every commander feared. One wrong move, one wrong word, and a soldier could be dead in seconds. Sammy gently pushed past Harris. "I'm coming in," he said softly. "Just me. Nobody else." I said stay back. Chen's voice rose in panic. "I can't do that," Sammy replied, stepping into the tent. "Because you wrote that you wanted to hear Mr. Bojangles one more time. And I'm Mr. Bojangles, or at least I'm the guy who sings it. So I need to come in and sing it for you." Chen lowered the rifle slightly, enough that Sammy could see his face in the dim light. He was young, maybe 19 or 20, with Asian features and eyes that looked ancient with exhaustion and trauma. "You're Sammy Davis Jr.," Chen said, his voice breaking. "You're supposed to be doing a show." "The show can wait," Sammy said, moving slowly closer. "What's your first name?" "Michael." "Michael, I found your letter, the one you wrote to your mother. I read it, and I want you to know that I understand." "You don't understand," Michael said, tears streaming down his face. "You can't understand what it's like here, what we've seen, what we've done. I can't sleep. I can't eat. Every time I close my eyes, I see their faces, the people we've killed, my friends who've died. I can't do this anymore." Sammy sat down on the edge of the cot, slowly, keeping his movements gentle. The rifle was still in Michael's hands, still pointed upward, but Sammy didn't acknowledge it. He just sat there like they were two friends having a conversation. "You're right," Sammy said. "I don't know what you've been through. I've never been in combat. I've never had to make the choices you've had to make. But I do know what it's like to feel so alone that you don't think you can survive another day." Michael looked at him skeptically. "You're Sammy Davis Jr. You're famous, rich, successful. How could you understand?" "Because I've wanted to die too," Sammy said quietly. "When I lost my eye in a car accident, I spent weeks wishing I'd died in that crash instead of surviving as half the person I used to be. When the woman I loved left me because people threatened to kill her for being with a black man, I didn't want to live anymore. And when my own community called me a traitor for decisions they didn't understand, I sat in my house with a bottle of pills, wondering if anyone would miss me if I was gone." Michael's grip on the rifle loosened slightly. "What stopped you?" "Music," Sammy said. "Songs, not my songs, other people's songs. I'd put on a record and listen, and for those 3 or 4 minutes, I wasn't alone. Someone was singing about pain, about heartbreak, about struggling to hold on, and I realized that if someone else had felt what I was feeling and survived it long enough to write a song about it, maybe I could survive it too. That's why I listen to Mr. Bojangles, Michael whispered. When everything gets too loud in my head, I put on that song, and it's like someone understands, like I'm not the only person who feels broken. You're not, Sammy said. You're not broken, and you're not alone. And I know it doesn't feel like it right now, but this pain you're feeling, it won't last forever. It'll change, it'll get quieter. You'll learn how to live with it. How do you know? Because I did. And because I've met thousands of people over the years who did. The pain doesn't disappear, Michael, but you learn how to carry it. And eventually, you learn how to use it. You learn how to help other people who are feeling what you're feeling right now. Michael was crying openly now. I don't want to die. I really don't. But I don't know how to keep living like this. Then don't live like this, Sammy said. Live differently. When this war ends, and it will end, you go home and you find help. You talk to people who understand. You find purpose in surviving. You turn this pain into something meaningful. Slowly, carefully. Michael lowered the rifle. He set it down on the ground next to the cot. Then he collapsed forward, sobbing, and Sammy caught him, holding this 19-year-old soldier who'd seen too much and carried too much. Will you sing it? Michael asked between sobs. Mr. Bojangles, will you sing it for me right now? Yes, Sammy said. Right here, right now, just for you. And there, in a dark tent in the middle of a Vietnam military base, with no music, no microphone, no audience except one traumatized soldier and a few witnesses standing outside, Sammy Davis Jr. sang Mr. Bojangles. His voice filled that small space, gentle and intimate. He sang about a man who'd lost everything but still danced, still found joy, still kept going despite the pain. It wasn't a performance, it was a prayer. It was one human being telling another human being that survival was possible. When the song ended, Michael looked up at Sammy. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you for coming in here. Thank you for not being afraid of me. I wasn't afraid of you, Sammy said. I was afraid for you. There's a difference. Colonel Harris arranged for Michael to be evacuated immediately for psychiatric evaluation and treatment. Before Michael left the base that night, he found Sammy and shook his hand. I'm going to survive this, Michael said. I'm going to make it home, and I'm going to remember that you believed I could. Sammy performed his show that night, 2 hours late. He never explained why. He sang and danced and made the soldiers laugh, but those who knew what had happened in Tent 14 saw something different in his performance. They saw someone who understood that entertainment wasn't just about distraction. Sometimes it was about connection. Sometimes it was about reminding people that they weren't alone. The military classified the incident immediately. Suicide and suicide attempts were sensitive issues, especially during a war that was already deeply unpopular. The official record stated only that there had been a medical emergency that delayed the performance. Soldiers who witnessed what happened were told not to discuss it. Sammy never spoke about it publicly. When journalists asked about his Vietnam tour, he talked about the performances, the brave soldiers, the difficult conditions, but he never mentioned Michael Chen or Tent 14. Michael Chen survived the war. He went home to San Francisco in 1970. He got help for his PTSD. He went to college. He joined the Army Reserve. Slowly, painfully, he built a life. Over the next 38 years, Michael Chen rose through military ranks. He became a commander, then a colonel, then a general. He served with distinction in multiple conflicts. In 2008, he received his 4th star, becoming one of the highest-ranking Asian American officers in U.S. military history. At his promotion ceremony, General Michael Chen did something unexpected. He asked permission to share a classified story. He told the assembled officers and dignitaries about a night in December 1968, when he'd been a 19-year-old private planning to end his life. He told them about Sammy Davis Jr. finding a suicide note, about running across a military base to find him, about a song sung in the darkness of a tent. "I'm standing here today," General Chen said, Because Sammy Davis Jr. decided that one soldier's life was more important than a scheduled performance. Because he saw me not as Private Chen, not as a case number or a problem to be solved, but as a human being worth saving. He taught me that surviving trauma isn't weakness, it's the first act of courage. Everything I've accomplished since that night, I owe to him. When word of General Chen's speech reached the press, journalists started investigating. They found records of Sammy's 1968 Vietnam tour. They found the 2-hour delay at Firebase Delta. They found soldiers who'd been there that night and were finally willing to talk about what they'd witnessed. By then, Sammy had been dead for 18 years. He never knew that Michael Chen survived, thrived, and built a life of service. He never knew that the song he sang in that tent became the foundation of a 4-star general's career. But Michael Chen knew, and in 2010, on what would have been Sammy's 85th birthday, General Chen arranged for a plaque to be installed at Firebase Delta's location in Vietnam. It reads, "In memory of Sammy Davis Jr., who showed us that saving one life is more important than entertaining thousands, December 18, 1968. If this story of compassion, crisis intervention, and the power of human connection moved you, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. Share this video with someone who might be struggling, who needs to hear that they're not alone. If you or someone you know is having thoughts of suicide, please reach out for help. You matter. Your life has value. And just like Michael Chen discovered, the pain you're feeling right now won't last forever. Don't forget to ring that notification bell for more incredible true stories about the legends who reminded us that sometimes the most important performance isn't on a stage,